Welcome to Let's Be Well Together podcast. We're your wellness check-in team. We talk about different categories of wellness and seeking balance between them. It all stems from my book, Accidentally Well. And there's overview info on our website, letsbewelltogether.com. This is episode 13.
We're back again for another week of Let's Be Well Together. I'm Julie Wilson, and I'm here with John today.
It's great to have you back, Julie. So what is on your mind today?
So John, I know you keep a list of quotes, and I'd like to talk about one of the quotes on your list, and I'm just going to read it here. So, there is nothing to make you like other human beings so much as doing things for them. And that quote is attributed to Zora Neale Hurston.
Yeah, it's a great one. There's so many, I don't really know how to describe it. Why don't we call it service? That's what some organizations call it. There's so many great things about service, not just in what you're actually accomplishing in terms of helping people, but what about how it makes us feel? It makes us feel amazing.
It does. That's one of the things that they talk about as not therapy, but as a way of individuals, just a sense of kindness, well-being, doing stuff for others. There's something that really gets to the core of you and makes you feel good if you're doing something for others. I don't know about you, but if you've ever sat in a line and someone ahead of you, so for example, in a drive-through at Starbucks or Tim Hortons or something, and the person in front of you buys you a coffee and you're like, wow, that was just really nice, and it makes you feel good. But turn that around and doing that for others, there's just something to be said about helping others and how it makes you feel good.
Another connection that makes me think of, I think back to the Michael Herman interview, and Michael was talking about how he didn't attach stigma to other people who had mental health issues, but he attached to self-stigma.
Yeah.
So he's harder on himself than he is on others. And I don't know why it pops in my head other than to say, when you help other people, you feel really great. And what if we turned that to ourselves sometimes? What if we helped ourselves? It wouldn't just make us feel better, but maybe that whole act of being generous to ourselves might have a little bit about that same good feeling as when we help other people.
That's a really interesting way of putting it. Because when we do help others and feel so good, I agree with you. Let's turn it around and make ourselves feel good. That makes sense.
Yeah, and it's not that we're saying don't help other people.
No,
keep doing it, but be fair to yourself too. One of the key things we're talking about in this show is we're telling you, the listeners, you deserve to spend time on wellness. You deserve to be well.
100%.
And there's so many pressures in the world, and for whatever reason, there's so many pressures that tell us that it's selfish to care for yourself, and we're trying to say it's not.
Yeah.
We're not saying be greedy. We're not saying do things you shouldn't do. We're saying you're worth it.
Exactly. That is a wonderful way to put it. But let me tell you a little bit about talking about helping people. Let me tell you a little bit about what I was doing this morning.
Okay.
Before we met, I met with a student who attends one of the universities in the area, and this individual, it was looking to change their identity, their gender identity. And one of the things that at my workplace we offer is some pro bono for individuals who'd like to change their identity, their gender identity on pieces of ID. And so what we do, it's all part of filling out the form, and included in the form is a statutory declaration. And as you know, a statutory declaration, you need a commissioner to commission that. They will take the individual and they will ask the individual, if they declare everything's true, and then the commissioner signs the document, watches them sign it. So this is one of the things that we offer. So we don't charge individuals for this, but it's a way that we can give back to the community and really help these individuals. $100, $200 to get a commissioner to sign something, that's a lot of money out of their pocket. And so this way we can help them. We sign the statutory declaration, and then they mail it off, and their identity becomes what they would like it to be.
It's amazing. And I mean, I take it there's not like a detailed discussion about how they're feeling or anything,
No.
but I bet you there's a sense that they appreciate it, and how does it? But more importantly, how does it make you feel?
Oh, John, it makes me feel like I've offered the best service to someone, and it makes me feel so good. I leave those meetings just feeling like I'm on top of the world.
And if we actually go back to the quote talks about making you like other human beings.
Yep.
I guess in this particular context, you get a bit of a rapport with the person you're helping, and you like them because you're helping them. But generally, too, there's another quote. I can't remember it, and I think it's George Orwell, but I've been trying to find it, and I can't find it. But something to the effect that a lot of people talk about that we should all love mankind, and those same people don't get along with their neighbors.
Exactly. Right.
So,
yes.
But if you actually are helping your neighbors, so where I live, I've got great neighbors. There's a bunch of them that help us with things like shoveling snow and lawn stuff and saying hi to each other. And it is a great feeling, helping your neighbors, helping each other. It does really make you feel like you like people more generally.
Yeah.
So taking apart the George Orwell one is if you do want to love mankind, why don't you start with the people you connect with, the people you have contact with? Why don't you help them?
Exactly. In our community, I would say the same thing, that, we have a group that looks out for each other. If there's something odd going on, it's just nice to feel part of a community and helping your neighbors. That is one thing of being and part of a community.
The other take I have on this is when I help someone else, and so I used to do Rotary work, and we do help in all kinds of different areas, small and large. And when I help other people or through the mental health first aid training, whatever it happens to be, if someone needs help, I don't judge them. I don't think, this person needs help, judge. And when I was thinking about that, it occurred to me, so luckily, I haven't had any kind of serious mental health issues that's required help, and I hope I don't. But I know that if I do, I'm going to try and recognize it in myself, and I'm going to try and get some help. And I like the fact that I can think about, they probably aren't going to judge me. Just like I don't judge the people I help, they're probably not going to judge me. Maybe it makes it easier to reach out.
Oh, I think it does. And you are definitely one individual. People get a sense of that. And it's all part of the being approachable, that listening. And John, you are one individual who I know I feel comfortable reaching out to. Being approachable in that listening aspect, people get a sense of that, right? And then they'll come back to you and they will feel comfortable. And hopefully then if they are struggling, they'll go that extra little bit and talk about what their struggles are.
Well, that's an interesting point too, because what it makes me think is if I were to think about who I would reach out to help from, I'm thinking, if it wasn't a professional, let's say I just wanted to talk to a friend first or a colleague or a family member, which is often the case. Like you don't usually go straight somewhere. Usually
exactly.
You try and find a friend first to talk to. And now that I think of it, I probably find a friend who I know, who I've seen helping other people before.
Exactly.
Whether they're through community work, volunteer work, just being there and listening. So that's a really interesting point. Chances are if you help other people, you'll also be seen as somebody who's approachable.
Yeah. And people who share their stories too. You're sharing your stories. And that was one of the points I had said to you about, get your feelings into your work because people will relate to that and recognize that. And I find that's one way that you become approachable and is through these telling of these stories.
I think that's a good place to leave it in this. And I just want to say too, and I've mentioned multiple times in the show that I was stuck. I didn't want to share my story. When I heard Michael Herman and Beth Beattie and other people sharing their story, that's what convinced me to do it myself. And I'd like to think that as more of us share our stories, it will normalize the discussion. And mine wasn't even, they were sharing serious mental health issues. My story is just embarrassing that people know something that I did. But nonetheless, we all have what we have. And if we all share and normalize, then it can't help but get better.
You're downplaying, John, because your story is incredible, and I encourage everyone to read your story.
Guests are giving their time, expanding our minds. We are in the area of social wellness today, and I'm glad to be talking with my friend Adrian DeCoo. I met Adrian when I was a member of the Rotary Club of Kitchener, and he's been an active member since 1986 and currently the 100th president of the club. He's volunteered much time, including on many training sessions for Rotarians over more than 20 years. He's received multiple awards from Rotary for his service, which are called Paul Harris Fellowships. He's chair of Rotary District 7080 Strategic Planning Committee, and he's helped the district and numerous clubs develop their vision and strategic plans. Adrian is a founding partner in the training and organizational development firm of Great Lakes Learning Inc. in Waterloo, Ontario. For more than 35 years, he's had extensive experience working with a variety of clients in areas of leadership training, developing vision, values, and mission statements, team building, and helping organizations evolve. He's a co-author of 3 training books. Adrian is also on the board of directors of the amazing organization Kids Ability, which helps thousands of children with different challenges to reach communication, social, physical, and behavioral goals. On a personal level, Adrian's been a friend and a mentor to me. He gave me valuable advice about my manuscript and helped me turn it into a book. Adrian, it's great to have you here.
It's my pleasure, John. Great to be here.
So the reason I asked you to join me is because one of the activities I'm exploring is service, is helping other people. And frankly, so you can see my little pinwheel logo beside me. And those are areas of wellness, categories of wellness that I feel are important to me. And different people might have different categories. And there was a time when I was thinking of adding service as one of the categories of wellness. But ultimately, I decided that it's overarching, that it really applies throughout all the categories and throughout life. We get a lot out of it. That's why I'm kind of long-winded wind-up for me to try and ask you to start talking about how doing volunteer work, service work, not only helps the community and people, but helps us.
Yeah, John, a word you just used and the way you described it, sometimes service, it's what I get out of it. And it's really a neat way of thinking about it, that when we think about service to the community or service to others, and we give a lot, and we give of our time and of our talents. And most of us will also say that we get a lot more out of it personally than we give into it. So that's probably why we do it, because it is a little bit self-serving that way. Service, I think when you do it right, or when you do it honestly, when you do it without strings, it's very rewarding. And I know that personally from my years of working with Rotary. And of course, Rotary has as its motto is service above self. And that's truly the case. I think when we look at the things that we do for the community, the things we do for others, the things we do for people internationally, a lot of times we do this and we have no idea how the recipient feels or who the recipient is. And yet we do it anyway because we know it's the right thing to do, or because it makes us feel good. And it does. I think there's some intrinsic reward that's there because we feel the need to do that.
I know that I like to remember hearing something, I think it was at Rotary, about the concept where you plant a tree knowing that you'll never see the people who enjoy it 40 years from now or 20 years from now.
Yeah, you're right, John. I forget how that little saying goes, but I saw that actually just the other day. I wish I had it at my fingertips today, because I think it describes exactly why we do what we do in Rotary, because it is a gift.
Well, from personal experience, obviously I can't ask you to speak for everybody, but speaking for yourself, what are some of the things that you get out of helping other people?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that I think I get a personal satisfaction out of my time. And, we really do look for thank yous. We really do look for people to pat us on the back. And I think that's very genuine in Rotary. When you do something, invariably somebody says, hey, that was great, or I'm really glad you helped us out, or thank you for doing that. And these aren't monetary rewards. These aren't hands-on rewards. These are just people saying thank you. And I think that's true in the business world. As I recall, when I was doing a lot of training in the business world, I understand that the greatest reward that people look for is individual recognition from their immediate supervisor. But I also know that's only true if three conditions exist. Number one, it's got to be sincere. Number two, it's got to be immediate. And number three, it's got to be specific. So all three of those conditions have to be there. And if that's true, then people really like what they hear and they don't look for anything else. I think that's kind of what people look for. So in my own world, I guess when I look at why do I do all this stuff in Rotary, boy, I'll tell you, I like the people that I work with. I like being in projects with them. I like the talent that people bring to it. And I like what I learn from it, because I think that I learn a lot every time we do something in Rotary. And I know that's one of those things that we pass on to others, is that learning and that sense of self-satisfaction. So I think that's probably the way I would describe that, John.
It's interesting what you're saying. So it's always tough with newer generations coming along, us older fogies at work. We try and figure out newer generations in terms of people we work with and what it is that they like to do and how it is that they like to work. And you just touched on something with those three factors about the genuine positive feedback, immediate and genuine. And, what we're hearing is a lot of people in the younger generation, that's what they're looking for at work too.
Yeah, I think you're right, John. And I think that in a lot of ways, when we look at younger generations growing up into the business world, sometimes we can't relate to it because they're of an age that we can't relate to. We try, but I think as a leader or as someone who's looking for, how do we relate and how do we allow people to grow and mature, you really have to ask yourself, how is it that people begin in the work world as a 20-year-old immature adult? How is it that they get to a 30-year-old adult? And what is it in the work world that allows that to happen? And that has a lot to do with, I think, the environment that leaders create that allows that to happen. And when I say that, what I really mean by that is, how good are leaders at listening, and how good are they at asking questions, and ultimately, how good are they at understanding what they're hearing? Because I think that's really the sin that we commit sometimes. Sometimes we disagree without understanding. And the beauty of that is that it's okay to disagree or not like something, but it's not okay to not understand it. And so the ultimate goal in listening and asking, to me, is the reward of understanding what's really going on. And I think that's young people like that. I think they like being heard. They like, and again, as I say, you don't have to like it. You don't have to agree with it, but you sure have to understand it. And you can only understand it by asking questions and listening.
One of the things that's challenging these days, I don't know the stats, but from what I hear, less and less people are joining service clubs. And there's all kinds of service clubs. We're talking about Rotary, but there's a whole number we could list. What I do find interesting, based on what you said, is that same enjoyment that you get from service seems to be the kind of thing, in part, that younger people are looking for at work. The positive feedback, the immediate feedback, and it's such an opportunity. But what's interesting is it seems like all of us eventually come to the point where we want to give back and we want to help the community. I'm wondering, I don't have the answer, but it seems like that tends to happen when people are a bit older, after the kids are grown up and you have more time. But you wonder how you could connect younger people to doing this kind of work and getting that kind of enjoyment. So,
John, a couple of things. The one element that I think that we all worry about at this point in our lives is time. And time is I see it as the greatest gift that we give to a service organization. It's our gift of time. But at the same time, time is a very fleeting thing. If I don't think my time is being well used, or I don't think my time is well regarded, I'll take my time somewhere else. And today, especially in the last couple of years, time has been a really big problem. People are getting squeezed with with child issues, with child care issues, with older family members issues, with having to work at home and having to do other things in a technical way, like on Zoom, which they could have done face to face before. Time is a really difficult issue. And what takes a back burner on that is service. And I think that, so, in time, I can use that term as well. In time, I think people will come back to the idea of saying, well, isn't there something else? I've been slugging my way through this with my family and with my, trying to do my work and all this stuff. And I think what's going to happen in the next couple of years, as we come out of this COVID, I think there are the needs that we all have, as you say, John, that we want to do this. Maybe we just don't have time right now. There are other priorities. But I really find that because there is this, I think, inherent and latent desire that most of us have. At some point, we look around and we say, hey, I've got it pretty good. Or, I've been pretty blessed in all the things that I've been given. Maybe it's time to give back. And that is a thing that comes later on, I think. That is something that maybe, later on in life, you say, okay, what else is there? And I think we turn to service to see if we can add something to the community and be a more contributing part to the community.
I guess one of the issues is that we really do need people out there volunteering and helping in so many areas. So it would be nice if newer generations could find that enjoyment as well. And it really is rich. One of the other things too that I find it's humbling, so that when you see people in need, they don't want to need help. A lot of people are proud and they wish they could do things without help, but they do need help. And one thing I find is in those situations, none of the helpers are judgmental. And so it usually works out, because the people who are receiving the help, one of the reasons they're grateful is because they see they're getting help without judgment. And another side effect to that for me is that it helps me know too, like if I experience, say, a mental health issue or some other problem or financial difficulty and I need to reach out for help, I think I might be more likely to do it now, because I think I might not feel so judged.
Yeah, that's a good point, John. And I think that we deal with that pretty regularly, I think, in our personal lives, as well as in any kind of service that we might provide to the community. And I want to go back to what I said a short time ago, is that I think the beginning point of providing help to people is again, that very simple concept of ask and listen. And then, if you don't ask, what do you need, or how can I help, or is it appropriate for me to help? Then we may just be being judgmental by our actions. We're just saying, here, this is good for you, or you should take this because I know it's good for you. Well, I'm not sure that makes a lot of sense. I think what makes a lot more sense is for us to try to understand what's going on here. We understand that by asking and listening. And I think then we look at, so what's the appropriate response? And I think from a service organization, we're doing that over and over again. We've just recently, as a Rotary Club, we've started to look at how can we understand the Indigenous people's issues better. And I say that by underlining the understand, not how can we help them, how can we understand them? Because until we understand, we can't help. So I think to the point that you're raising, John, whether it's any kind of help or service that we might give to people, I'm not sure that we can do that effectively until we understand it. And we should be recycling that thought every time we enter into one of those areas of uncertainty, because uncertainty is there all around us, and we can't clarify until we ask the questions, we listen, and we understand.
I was just looking at an Instagram post from the Mental Health Commission of Canada. It's a related, not identical point, but it looked really interesting. So I clicked on it, and then I saw it took me to a YouTube video. And the premise was they were giving advice to organizations that helped youth with recovery. They used this neat analogy where they said, just imagine that it's a restaurant. Imagine somebody sits down at a restaurant and you just go and say, welcome, and you put down a plate of fish in front of them. You wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
You would say,
what do you want? So that's a really great point you make.
Yeah, so that's a good analogy, John, because that's exactly what it would look like. Yeah.
And then they go on and there's a lot more to it.
Right,
I might talk about that someday.
Yeah,
but
like
if you
that.
can believe it, we're already burned through our time. So I'm going to turn, that's been great. It's been a really nice start to a conversation that I hope we can continue. I'm going to turn to a question that I ask every guest. So our show is about different categories and areas of wellness and how difficult it is for all of us to try and pay attention to all of them in a busy life. So the question I ask every guest is, are you currently neglecting an area of wellness in your life? And if so, can you think of one thing you can do to foster wellness in that area?
Yeah, big time, John. I've, as you know, I'm a runner. At least I consider myself a runner, and I'm not running, and I'm not even walking these days. And part of it has to do with an issue that I've had because I've had some back surgery. But what I find is, even though the back surgery is healed, but I can't walk very well, so I'm not walking a lot. But there's no reason why I can't be doing other physical exercises. There's no reason why I can't be doing upper body strength. No reason I can't be doing strength, and I'm not. And I'll tell you, this really reminds me that to get my butt in gear and get at it, because it doesn't come any easier as time goes on. So very much the physical side of that, John, is something that's in my brain, and certainly talking to you tonight, I think, knowing how much you love running and how much time and energy you put into the work that it takes to do that. I'm envious of it, but I know that I can do a lot more myself. It's
so hard because especially if you love to run and because of surgery or something else, you can't, and that can be depressing. But the problem is, if you stop eating well, and then you stop exercising, it's harder to eat well and exercise, and then you put it off more, and then
exactly.
it's just a vicious circle. So yeah, no, even just starting something small and just doing a little small thing tomorrow and a little small thing a couple days from then, and then hopefully within a few weeks it's a little more. And I really wish you a lot of luck on that.
Yeah, and that's really, it really requires that kind of tenacity. I think you really need to make a commitment, and you can only do that to yourself. You're just kidding yourself if you make a commitment. You say, I'm not going to do it. Well, you're just kidding yourself. You're really not kidding anybody else. So.
I know. And the other thing about all this, and why I don't tend to give advice, and we don't on our show, is because you have to be ready. Like, you have to want it.
Yeah.
Until somebody wants it, there's not going to be a change. And so the hope is we're just back here cheerleading and reminding people, hey, think about it. And when they're ready for it, hopefully they can pounce back into it. So, okay, thanks very much, Adrian. I really appreciate you having me on the show, and we'll talk to you soon.
More than welcome, John. Thanks.
I'm Cameron, and this is The Starving Artist. Have you ever listened to a piece of music and wondered how you knew it was coming to a close? Or when a chord is played, you know something else is about to happen in the music, even if you're not a trained musician? The magic behind this comes down to something called chord functions, and there are 3 types. Today, I want to go through these 3 types, so hopefully once you're finished listening to this little segment, you'll have a better understanding of why certain chords feel the way they do. Plus, I want to show you a few links that you can draw to English, or any other language I'm sure, to help illustrate these functions in your everyday life. So the 3 chord function types are known as tonic, subdominant, and dominant. And don't let the jargon throw you off here. Once you get the hang of these, it's super easy. A tonic function is like the home base of our key. It feels stable, it feels complete, and we could finish whatever thought, musical or otherwise, we're trying to convey there. A great example of this is in the key of C here, which I'll play for you. So hopefully you would agree that when you hear that last chord in that teeny musical phrase, it feels complete. In this case, we were playing in the key of C major, and that final chord was the C major chord, which uses that tonic function. It feels stable, and it feels finished. If you were to outline this function in English, you could use a sentence like, I like your shirt. It's a complete thought, and we're not set up with any kind of expectation that we're waiting for more information. It feels like we've finished whatever it is that we're trying to say. However, when we look at the subdominant function, we get a more unstable feeling. It's a semi-stable feeling. It sets up an expectation for something more, but it doesn't give us an indication as to what that might be specifically. So check this out. So that doesn't feel nearly as complete or as stable, right? It's got this weird floaty sensation to it, like we're waiting for something more, but it could be anything. If you were to outline this in English, you could say something like, well, I like your shirt. And you're waiting for me to say but or and put some more information into that, right? I like your shirt, but there's a huge mustard stain down the front. Or I like your shirt, the color green really suits you, or whatever. So the big takeaway from the subdominant function is that it's taking us from a place of stability to a place of instability, and we don't know where we're going next, but we know it's something. Something is moving. The last function, the dominant function, is the most unstable chord type of all, and it owes that to what's called a tritone. As an aside, a tritone is just an interval, that is, the distance between two notes, that it was actually banned in sacred music because it was known as the devil's interval, because it was such a crunchy, dissonant sound. Here's a quick tritone so you can get a feel for how crunchy it is. See what I mean? It's a very rubby, dissonant sound. You might also recognize that interval from the beginning of the Simpsons theme. The Simpsons. That's a tritone. Kind of fun. Anyway, when we put that interval into this chord, the chord itself becomes very unstable and desperately wants to pull to a tonic function. It really wants to go home to the one chord. I'll play a quick example for you here. And for those of you with an instrument nearby, this is a G7 chord to a C major chord. It sounds like this. So you can hear in that first chord, the G7, how it's very unstable. You're totally expecting it to go somewhere. And then when we get to that C chord, everything feels resolved. That's the dominant function going to a tonic function. It's the most powerful move we have in music, where we're setting up expectations and then either satisfying those expectations or moving away, which is known as a deceptive resolution. But that's a topic for another day. Once you really get the hang of these functions, you can play with their power, and it's pretty fun. For instance, if I do something like this, so tonic to start, subdominant, we're expecting some change. Dominant, we want to go home, we want a resolution. But then just don't resolve it. You see how powerful that dominant function is? We really want to hear a tonic resolution. Here it is. The power of chord functions. To recap, we've got 3 chord function types. The tonic function, which is very stable. The subdominant, which is more unstable and sets us up to expect something else. And the dominant function, which is the most unstable and demands a resolution. See if you can hear examples of these things in everyday dialogue, TV shows, movies, even written dialogue in books. Listen for it in the pieces of music that you like. It's everywhere. That's all for me today. Thanks for listening. I'm Cameron. This is The Starving Artist. Until next time.
Hi everyone, we can use your help. Without getting into a boring technical talk, it's challenging for us to figure out how many people are listening. We could use your help in a couple ways. First, to give us a sense of who's listening, please follow our Instagram account. It's at lets.be.well.together. Second, follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We'd really appreciate your help here. Also, we'd really love to hear from people. Right now, it feels a bit like we're broadcasting into space. We send out our signal and don't hear even an echo. We'd love to hear whether you're getting something out of this, whether you've been inspired to do something for yourself, whether one of our guests said something that connected with you, so please drop some comments on our Instagram account. We hope you're enjoying the show, and if so, please spread the word about us.
Move that body like we're meant to do. And here we are. It's Sheila and
Sammy.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about some move your bodies. So today we're going to talk about fads, eating healthy and working out or
regularly.
Yeah. Just doing normal work, I think is the best. Mm-hmm. But these fads are quite funny.
They are.
So shall we do some fitness fads first?
Sure. Yeah.
Like those 5-minute abs, fabulous. 5-minute abs.
Yeah. How can you not want to do that?
Yeah. Like, I mean, I guess any workout is better than no workout. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this just doesn't work.
No. Yeah, typically not. I know you were going through the decades of the different fads.
Shall we do that?
Yeah, let's read them
Okay,
out.
so I have the 1950s, the hula hoop fad.
Yeah, which is coming back. I was telling Sheila, it's a thing on TikTok where you can see people
Hula hoop. And are they any good at it?
They're pretty good. Like, I'm not very good at the hula hoop, but
Me
I guess
neither.
it is good for your stomach muscles. So it is interesting.
Okay. And the 60s was the vibrating belt.
Which I had no idea what that was.
So you got to look it up, Sammy, because it's really funny. There's like this machine with this huge belt and you step into it and then you turn it on and then all it does is go back and forth. So you're vibrating.
Right. Which I've also seen something similar to that. Like, they have these like patches and again, they put them on their abs and they just kind of pulse.
Yes.
And that's also supposed to give you abs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Interesting. Crazy.
That is crazy. The 70s was jazzercise. We've all seen that with those lovely outfits. The 80s was aerobics. So
Aerobics.
Jane Fonda and
What would you say like the difference is between jazzercise and aerobics? Because I like when I picture them, I'm picturing something very similar.
oh, okay. So jazzercise is definitely more the outfits, with the high cuts
Right, okay.
and like they're doing jazz moves. Like you'll see them do jazz squares and
Okay.
3-point turns. Like they're actually, and they're doing more isolations and stuff.
Right.
Whereas aerobics, it's a little bit more
Like the hitting.
cardio
Yeah,
too. Like,
right.
March and squat and,
Right.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
1990s was Taibo.
Taibo.
Yeah, so a form of martial arts. I remember Taibo. Like I remember that coming out.
Is it similar to like Tai Chi?
No,
No, because Tai Chi is much more like
fluid.
and
Yeah, Tai Chi is
like
actually
like a meditation. Right.
yeah.
Okay.
No, Taibo is more like kickboxing type. I mean, not kickboxing, but a type of punching and kicking.
Right.
And,
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. 90s was spin classes. Yeah.
Spin class.
You ever
which
done?
Is, I have done a spin class and they're very popular right now. Like there's a lot of spinning studios like Uptown Waterloo and downtown Kitchener. Started a lot in LA.
Oh, and that's all they do is spin. Just
spin.
ride their bikes.
Just spin, and it's like a techno like disco in the inside. So it's all light colors and you're going to like really loud, exciting music.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. In 2000s, we've got Zumba, and then there's also Pilates.
Ooh,
Pilates were popular. There were Pilates studios. I don't know if there still is.
No, I think
like-
classes though, like you can take Pilates classes, but I don't know if there's a studio that's dedicated to Pilates. Same with Zumba. I feel like that can still.
Yeah, there used to be Zumba
Yeah,
studios.
yeah.
Anyways,
Crazy.
okay, so there's our fitness. Now to the food, the food diets. So here's some that I can think of, like the keto diet, the cabbage soup diet, the grapefruit diet, the liquid diet, like the where you just have smoothies,
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
The lemonade diet. I just was looking up that one. Supposedly Beyonce did this lemonade
Queen
diet.
Bee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
before she did Dream Girls. Yeah.
That's
so
crazy.
that's when it became really popular.
Yeah.
And generally, if you cut out things that are important, it's really bad for your body. And also, it's not sustainable.
No. Yeah. It's like, how long can you really
How long can you
last
do
on
that?
lemonade?
Yeah, no matter what you put in it. Because supposedly it was really bad tasting lemonade.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
I love lemonade.
I know.
So I wouldn't want to do that.
You know, nice sugar. And
Yeah.
Anyway, so those are, I just think fad diets are not great. You should like do a Mediterranean diet or,
Yeah.
try and Eat
Yeah.
whole foods, and
Yeah.
that's the best way to go.
Yeah, I see like ads on my Instagram all the time for diets. Like
Yeah.
just like these like I don't know if they're trainers or if they're health people, but they're basically just trying to get people to sign up for their program. And a lot of times they'll be like quick fix, like
Yeah.
like the 5-minute abs or
Yeah.
get your legs and booty looking like this in
Yeah.
10 days or your money back. And I'm like always a little bit tempted. Like, well, maybe. Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah,
Can
like,
it? I always
might be worth it just for those quick 10 days.
There's a thought. Popped up while running. You would have caught me smiling a bit on my run today because I remembered something that I used to joke with Sheila about. I studied philosophy for all those years at university, and everyone always jokes about how useful or useless that is. And you often wonder, what is the ultimate thing that I figured out after reading all those books about philosophy and thinking about it? And I ended up kind of with a joke, a running joke between Sheila and me, which was, after all that, after all the thinking, I came up with a theory. The things you touch every day are important. Don't scrimp on the things you touch every day. So that is not, by the way, the ultimate answer to all the questions of philosophy, but I still think it's a good thing to think about. So when it comes to things like your bed, your couch, or your favorite chair, your socks and underwear, are you a coffee lover like I am? Then why not get the coffee you really like, even if it's a bit more expensive? Hey, if you're going to have to sit back and figure out one of life's most biggest challenges, why not put on a really comfortable hoodie? Hopefully that doesn't age me. I think most people call them sweaters, but why not put on a really comfortable hoodie, even if it costs a little bit more than the cheap one? Because it's just as easy to figure out life's problems with that comfortable hoodie. So I'm not saying go spend a fortune on everything, but if you're trying to decide where to allocate your dollars, remember that very important philosophical theory, conclusion, whatever you want to call it, the things you touch every day. Don't scrimp on those. It's me. Am I?
Yeah. Just let me say, flip side of the coin. Okay, well, here's a flip side for you.
Well, it should be move your body better.
But we argue about this a lot. Me being a dancer, I stretch a lot. And so now that I'm not owning a dance studio anymore, I still think that you should stretch a lot. And I don't think John stretches enough.
And me being a runner, I should stretch a lot. But I'm one of there's so many of us who run who don't like stretching. And
Why?
frankly, there's mixed science, by the way, for running on especially static stretching. So let's talk about the difference between static stretching and dynamic stretching.
Okay.
But on static stretching, there's some studies that show that it creates injuries in runners. So, but anyway, the bottom line is I agree.
Just because you're stretching beyond a point, or like,
I don't know. I haven't read the articles.
oh, okay.
But anyway, so for me, you know more about stretching, so I'm not going to steal the mic on this one. But just a quick point. Like, to me, a dynamic stretch is when you're moving, like you lift your leg and kick it out.
Right.
And a static stretch is you lie on the ground and like do the splits or something.
Right. And to me, dynamic stretching isn't stretching.
Right.
That's not stretching. That's like moving. When you kick your leg out, like when you do like a quick stretch, when you're just like warming up, basically, is what I feel like it is. Warming up those muscles, getting them, hey, I'm going to start moving. Okay, let's prep you a little bit.
Okay, well, I have
And
a
then
perfect
going.
argument you can't refute.
Oh,
It hurts.
I can refute
It
anything.
hurts. I don't like it hurts when I
No
stretch.
pain, no gain. That's
Okay.
the way it is.
So let's pretend it's not a flip side and that I'm going to agree with you and tell me why stretching is good.
It's not that. It's just, I understand that, when you're running, so, you're out running and you've been out there for 3 hours. I know that you're just exhausted. It's hard to stretch, but your muscles are already warm. It's a really good time to stretch.
It's hard though too. So if you've ever seen at the end of a long run, like if you go to half marathon or a marathon, watch at the end if one of the runners like me happens to accidentally drop their water bottle or something. It's hilarious
my
because
gosh.
they look down, we look down and we're like, it's not as bad as you think it's going to be, but you're like, I can't pick that up.
I don't want to. I
so
don't
you
want
see
to.
you go have this really slow motion bend down. Oh, it wasn't that bad, but it is bad. But that makes it hard to stretch too. You're so tight, and I think
So
running tightens
tight.
my hamstring somehow.
Oh, yeah, no, it definitely does. Yes. But I think stretching is very important. And especially the older you get, because you're losing mobility and your joints are already tightening. So I think it's important to continue the stretch. And I just find when I'm sitting in front of the TV, it's a great time to, and I'm not saying do the splits and, anything like that. Just do some light stretching.
Okay. So just before I talk a little bit about some of the stuff that I like to do, what is it that you find, how does it make you feel when you're stretching regularly, and what do you think the benefits are?
Well, it's more not when I'm stretching that how I feel, right? Because sometimes you feel tight, right? And that's when you have to stretch that particular muscle a little bit more. So when I'm stretching, I have this little routine of, going through these few motions. It takes like maybe 15 minutes.
No, I don't mean how do you feel while you're stretching. I mean, how do you feel when you keep stretching a part of your routine?
Right. Like it's mandatory for me to stretch every day. Like if I don't stretch, it's how I feel if I don't stretch.
I see.
Like that feeling of one week, just a few weeks ago, I was working, 16 hours a day or something, 4 days in a row. And all of a sudden I felt like just touching my toes was it was hard. I was like, oh, no. Like that feeling, that tightness comes into your body and it's just like, oh, I've got to stretch. Like in my mind, it just hits me that, okay,
you don't feel natural if you're tight.
Yeah, I don't feel like I can move with ease.
And I think for most people, that they don't know what it feels like to be flexible.
No.
So for me, for example, I used to be pretty flexible and I lost it over time. I can't touch my toes barely. That's a lot of work. And so it's embarrassing to try. So I guess, anyway, it is a bit more of a flip side. Than a move your body with you and me. But I can see that, and I'm about to start getting ready again. In the next very short while, I'm going to start training for another run. And when I'm in training, I do try and stretch at least twice a week and more on the static side.
So basically our goal here, people, is to get John stretching. So everybody send in.
Don't anyone send
respond
anything.
Say stretch, John, stretch.
No, if Tony Audenshaw is listening, please send a note saying that a doctor's note saying I don't have to stretch. Because Tony's on my favorite podcast, Marathon Talk, and he's often making this same joke about supposed to stretch but don't stretch.
Don't think Tony will say that.
Well, anyway. Please remember, we're not providing advice. We're sharing our experiences and thoughts. We hope to inspire you to think about and foster wellness actively in ways that work for you. We try and get things right, but we can't guarantee everything we say is correct, or the things we talk about will work for you. We urge you to consult with qualified people when you need advice. Let's be well together, and let's be sure to do that in a safe way.
And now it's sign-off time, and we have John, Sheila, and Sammy here. So, Sammy, we didn't get to see you last week because it was Easter, but we thought we'd bring up the wedding that we had. So,
which was like 2 weekends ago.
Yeah, but it was fun.
Yeah, so much fun. So many people, lots of dancing. It was a great time.
It was so windy.
It was oh my gosh, yeah, it was crazy. But I keep seeing they just got back from their honeymoon, so they were posting a lot of honeymoon photos, and I think they're in Mexico, so super jealous of the sunshine and everything they're getting and being on the beach. I miss it so much. So.
Oh, I haven't gone on Instagram or Facebook today, so I'll have to take a look. But yeah, they came home yesterday.
And the wedding itself was amazing. The hall was amazing. The food, the drink. It was just after 2.5 years of not seeing anything like that, and then to have such a great one. We'd been to a wedding about 2 months earlier, and it was amazing. So 2 back-to-back weddings after COVID. It was just a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
And I know there was a lot of people there that have never been to a Flanagan wedding. So when Dashboard Lights came on, they're all like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
And I guess other people were like, "This is a Flanagan staple. What are you talking about?"
Yeah,
so for some people, they really enjoyed that. Other people were like, "Who are these
crazy
aliens?
people?"
Or how do they have a choreographed piece to this song? Like, when did they do this? But yeah.
So what's going on with you this week, Sammy?
Yeah, so I have been very busy the past couple of weeks. So I'm looking forward to just relaxing. If I can get any minutes or moments to just relax, maybe on the weekend. I don't really have a lot planned. So yes, I'm really trying to focus on that, but I haven't really been able to get to any gym or to yoga lately. So I'm going to try Movati. I keep bouncing around from different gyms because I'm trying to find something that works for me. I love the yoga, but I also need a little bit of something pushing me. So Movati kind of has those classes as well, like yoga classes. So I'm gonna try it out, see how that goes. And leaving for Greece in 5 weeks and closing on a house in 5 weeks. So very busy and just
that's
trying to wrap my head
exciting.
around that. Yeah. How about you, John? What do you got going on?
Well, it was my turn to get COVID, so it kind of sucked. It was so strange too, because Tuesday, I usually go for a run on Tuesday, and this one, I'm getting ready to do the Waterloo Half Marathon on May 1st, so next Sunday. I decided I was going to push a 10K, and I did. I felt amazing. I got home and had one of my best runs in a while. Went to sleep, felt just a teeny bit chilled overnight, and then a teeny bit of a runny nose the next day. So just to be safe, I took a rapid test, and I couldn't believe it. I was positive. So then isolation, staying at home. I did end up getting a bit of a cough and a bit of a fever, but I would say that my symptoms were light. And it's been kind of a boring week of getting stuck in the house. And I'm just so glad I went out for a run yesterday. It felt pretty good. I'm pretty sure I'm over it, even though technically I'm not sure if I am, but my body's telling me I am. So now I'm a bit anxious because I don't know what the impact is going to be, and kind of hit me in my last couple of weeks of training. So I'm going to still try and do the Waterloo Half next Sunday, unless I'm not feeling up to it. I'll be smart about it. But right now I think it's a green light, and I'm just kind of going to work my way through the week with my fingers crossed, hoping I'm feeling good when I run a couple times. How about you, Sheila?
Well, it's been a hard week for me too, because John had COVID. So we've basically had to isolate, and being in a house when you're with someone, but not really with someone. So that was hard, but I did end up going up to Collingwood with a friend of mine this weekend. That was a nice relief, just to get out of the house and get away from the COVID.
Oh, well, let's just be clear though. She already had this trip planned before that. It was girls' weekend away. They went to the spa, and I'm hoping you're having a great time.
Oh my goodness. It was so wonderful. We went to the Scandinavian spa, and it was lovely. Oh, it was beautiful. Yeah. But also Sunday was so gorgeous in Collingwood. I don't know what it was like here, but it was like 27 degrees. So beautiful. We brought our bikes up, and we were biking all over the place. And yeah, it was a great weekend. I'm really happy that I got to do that. And I'm crossing my fingers that this week will go well.
Okay. Well, let's get through the week and get to next week. And I guess we'll talk to you then.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Take care.
That is it for today's show. Please try and make wellness a priority.
You deserve it.
If you feel the need to talk to someone or ask for help, please do that.
Accept yourself for the person you are.
So long.
Adieu.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Goodbye.